Okay, so we're starting note 7.1 here. This is on page 1 of your packet, talking about ratios and proportions, which I'm sure you remember learning. This isn't a brand new topic. Ratio is just a comparison of two numbers by division, usually written in fraction format, so 3/4, 5/9. That would be a ratio. Proportion is just two ratios that are equal. So 1/2, which would be the same as 6/12. And so what we use when we're solving these is if the ratios are equal, so if we have a proportion, then the cross products will be equal. So if we multiply A times D, that will equal B times C. We call this cross multiplying. Some people call it a butterfly method, where if we had A over B equals C over D, you just draw the butterfly coming out. Shows you which direction to multiply them. I've heard people call it a fish also. So it just depends when you first learned it, what did your teacher call it. It doesn't matter which way you do this, it all means the same thing. And so our first example is just determine whether they are proportion, which would mean they equal each other. So we cross multiply and we find out, does 4 times 16 equal 6 times 12? 4 times 16, if you plug that in your calculator, or if you know it, it's 64. 6 times 12 is 72. They do not equal each other, so the answer is no. Because they would have to equal each other to be a proportion. And on this one, we do our 3 times 10, 5 times 6. So 3 times 10, does that equal 5 times 6? 30 equals 30. Yes, they are a proportion. So now we move on to where we have a variable to solve for. And so this one we're just going to, again, same thing. Step 1 is cross multiply. And so we will be using calculators for this unless you want to multiply all those decimals in your head. And that gives me 29.796 equals 4a. And then we solve by a, which means step 2 is divide by 4. And again, we'll use our calculator for that and find out that a equals 7.449, and that is our answer. Alright, example 3, we do the same thing. So anytime we have the proportion set up, our step 1 is going to be to cross multiply. And when we cross multiply and we have two terms, we do have to put it in parentheses. So that will give us the 3x equals 7 parentheses x plus 2. We had this negative sign here also. And so when I have a negative sign, I'm going to apply it to the top number, which would mean that's a negative 3x. And so then my step 2 is I have an equation now, I just have to solve for x. And so our first step, anytime we're set up like this, would be to distribute. That gives me 7x plus 14. Still equals the negative 3x. Next, I need my letters on one side, numbers on the other side, so I will subtract 7x from both sides of the equal sign. That cancels out. That gives me 10x equals 14. And my last step is to divide by 10. And that gives me x equals 14 over 10, and I'm going to always reduce that. I'm sorry, I left off my negative there. Divide by negative 10. And so then I would reduce to negative 7/5, or do the decimal of negative 1.4. Okay, so flip on over now to your page 2 of notes. Here we have another example of the same thing. We just have that 2-term of x minus 2 and x plus 6. We have that on both sides of the equation. But our steps are still the same. We're going to cross multiply. So cross multiply to give us 4 parentheses x minus 2 equals 2 parentheses x plus 6. And then step 2 is always just solve. And so again, we distribute first to give us 4x minus 8 equals 2x plus 12. I'm going to move my 2x over next. So now I have 2x minus 8 equals 12. Move my 8 to the opposite side of the x by adding 8x. Adding 8, so that cancels out. And so that gives me 2x equals 20, and I divide by 2 to get x equals 10. And that is my answer. I'm sorry, you could not see that. Okay. So now we're moving on to word problems. And I find a lot of my students think word problems are hard. And so I'm going to show you the way to set these kind of word problems are actually very easy. And so what's very important is over on the side here it says words first. And so in every problem all we're looking for is saying what things are we talking about. She charges $9 for 12 balloons. So my first thing is I'm going to set up my proportion with dollars and balloons. And that just makes sure I put everything up in the right place. And so $9 for 12 balloons has to equal my second proportion, so what would she charge for 50 balloons? And so since that says balloons, I know the 50 goes down in the denominator. And that means I'm solving for the dollars on top. And so all I had to do is make sure I set up my words and put the numbers along with the word that they go with. And now I just do my cross multiply and divide. 9 times 50 is 450 equals 12x. I divide by 12 to get x equals 37.5. Since that is a dollar amount, I will go ahead and put my dollar amount, make it 50 cents, and that is my answer. Should make $37.50. Alright, on example 6, again we're doing words first, and so we're saying 50 pages in 1.5 minutes. So my words are pages and minutes. And so it's 50 over 1.5, and it gives me 90 pages. And so the 90 goes on top because that's where my pages word is. And this is where the words are so important to make sure you put your numbers in the right places. And now I just again do my cross multiply and divide. So 50x equals 135. I divide by 50 to find that x equals 2.7, and we're talking about minutes. Alright, so now our last example for the day is a recent school bond issue passed with 3 out of every 4 votes in favor of the bond. And so this is where the words aren't exactly. 3 out isn't a good word to go out of, but we know, so 4 votes, those would be our total votes. And the passed with 3 out of, that would be the in favor. So our words are in a little bit different order right now, so our votes in favor of it out of the total votes is what we're looking for here. And so that's our 3 out of 4, and we find out a total of 2,550 people voted, and we're finding out how many voted in favor of it. And then again, we cross multiply, divide. That gives us a very big number, so we have 7650 equals 4x. Divide by 4 to find it is 1,912.5. Now we can't have half a vote. That's not possible. So we have to round. So I'm going to round that number up to 1913. Votes for. Alright, so that is the end of the lesson for today.